We are both from Paras Hospital, Gurgaon. Today is World Thalassemia Day. So we thought we'll take this opportunity to discuss with you about this disease, which is so prevalent in the society. You'll be surprised to know that there are over about 10 million people suffering from thalassemia in the world. So often you must have seen small kids coming to the hospital for blood transfusion almost every month. So this is a disease of basically hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is something which carries oxygen in the blood. Whenever there is a fault in the making of one of the chains, alpha or beta of the hemoglobin, the disease presents. And therein, the child presents with severe anemia and many other physical problems which need to be catered from time to time. So the aim of this connecting with you, one is to tell you how we can prevent this particular disease from adding on to the already burdened medical resources and the society so that we don't see children coming to the hospital again and again for blood transfusion. And two, Dr. Neha would discuss on what are the recent advances in management of thalassemia, uh, which is there presently, and what we can do for the kids. So I now switch over to Dr. Neha if she wants to add something.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Neha Singh. I'm a pediatric hemato-oncologist and a BMT physician at Paras Hospital, Gurgaon. So today is the World Thalassemia Day. So firstly, congratulations to all the strong warriors of thalassemia all over the world. Like Dr. Manish Manan has just pointed out, there are almost 3.5 lakh babies delivered throughout the globe who are diagnosed with thalassemia every year. On a general, in 2020, if we would say, the lifespan of a thalassemic is around 30, average lifespan of a thalassemic is around 30 years. That means currently we have almost 10.5 million thalassemics walking around and trotting around the entire globe. So, how can we help these children? Can we help these children? Is what we're going to be answering today. So, we invite you all for asking questions. Whatever questions you have, we will be answering them. First, I think we can just discuss what are the types of thalassemias that are there in the society right now. There are almost 200 different mutations of thalassemias which are present. But broadly, there are two types of thalassemias. One is the alpha thalassemia and one is the beta thalassemia. What
Yeah,
do you say?
and then the commonly what we see is the beta thalassemia, which again is one is beta thalassemia trait or thalassemia minor. So these are those people who live in the society and they themselves do not get affected. Problem comes when two thalassemia minor marry. So then there is a chance that they may have a child who suffers from the disease called as thalassemia major. So we always say, instead of going in for Janampatri and all that, we should get certain blood tests done of both the boy and girl and see if both of them are thalassemia minor or not. That should be avoided. Then we have other variants like thalassemia intermedia who may or may not require blood transfusion. The worrying component is the thalassemia major, the beta thalassemia major. These are the children who require blood transfusion almost every month. Apart from that, it also affects their growth, their immunity, and because of repeated blood transfusions, they get iron overload and then problems because of that. So this is what we need to avoid. This is what we are worried about. So thalassemia minor, we are not worried about, but we need to know. So that knowledge is very, very important.
Rightly said, like as Dr. Manish pointed out. So, thalassemia minors have, they are carriers, they are just traits, they will never suffer from the problem themselves. They wouldn't even come to know. But we are still very, very concerned. Why? Because it is when two minors are actually getting married, is when a thalassemia major can be reproduced. 25% chance that a baby may be having, we may be having thalassemia major, and we want to avoid it. Any genetic disorder, this is a genetic disorder, and any genetic disorder, the treatment or the prevention is basically to not have it in the gene pool. So we have to eliminate it from the gene pool. Hence, prenatal diagnosis is essential. Every woman who is pregnant has to be screened, and HPLC has to be done, which is a normal. Currently, the it's a guide in the guidelines. Every pregnant woman is being screened for thalassemia major. So once she is being screened, if she is a thalassemic minor, the husband has to be screened as well. And in a case when the husband and the wife have both been diagnosed to have minor, an amniocentesis is definitely indicated, and around 16 to 20 weeks, an amniocentesis should be done. and genetic testing should be done of the fetus so as to know what gene the baby is carrying. So that is one point. Thalassemia intermedia, what sir has just mentioned, these children may not suffer from a gross disease. These children may require blood transfusion, not as common as thalassemia major, but in times of need per se, when they fall sick, if they have any infections. In cases when the child falls sick, the requirement of iron, the requirement of the hemoglobin, oxygen carrying capacity, everything increases. And during this time, the child may have severe anemia, so may require an iron transfusion. During growth spurts, a child is growing at a very fast rate. So whenever the spurt is there near to puberty, during infancy, so the child requires higher amounts of iron. At that time, these children may require blood transfusions. Pregnancy is another. If when a thalassemia intermedia, a woman who is pregnant and she is having thalassemia intermedia may require a higher care, it will be a high risk pregnancy, she may require transfusions during that. And this is why we must know if the child is suffering, I mean if the patient is suffering from thalassemia intermedia or not. There are very good treatments that are available, there are very good medicines which are available which can reduce the requirement for blood transfusions in these children. The most common medicine that is being used is hydroxyurea, very, very commonly used. It is an HPF inducer. Uh, Finally, we come to the biggest spectrum of the disorder and the dreaded disease, that is thalassemia major. Thalassemia major will be requiring transfusions monthly, and eventually, after a age, probably a decade or so, they may even require transfusions every 15 days. This is a huge burden on the child, on the parents, on the system, on the healthcare. Requirement for blood transfusion is not an easy task. Apart from the requirement for blood transfusion, these children will require medicines because they may have complications due to iron overload, because there will be a lot of iron which is in the system which is not getting excreted, and they will be requiring drugs for that. This iron overload leads to a lot of other problems. They can get deposited in the liver, they can get deposited in the cardia, into the brain, and the pituitary. So these children have major complications during that. On an average, there is no per se span. On an average, they live up to 30 years as of date, 30 to 40 years. Some, because if they're poorly transfused, may also succumb earlier. So they have a fixed lifespan. These are the patients that we have to aim at, and these are the patients we need to catch early because there are treatments that are available.
Yeah. So not only that, like once we have a child who's having thalassemia major, the blood transfusion, that aspect is one thing. We must also remember that they are immunocompromised and being repeatedly exposed to a transfusion, it depends on what kind of center they are being given blood transfusion at. So transfusion related diseases are prevalent in them. And because of lower immunity, certain vaccinations are very, very important in these children, particularly the pneumococcal vaccine, the flu vaccine. So we have to look at that aspect. The growth gets affected. They develop short stature. Those aspects are there. We have to look into their nutrition as well. Herein, I want to tell you yeah, that because they have chances of developing iron overload, we have to ensure that their diet is not very iron rich. Vis-a-vis a normal child, wherein we say the diet should be iron rich. Here, we want to avoid iron in these children because of the transfusions. They develop iron overload. So these aspects are also to be looked into. The chances of developing a disease because of low immunity, they are more prone. So it's a very difficult thing for the parents. Somebody who is a parent of a thalassemic child would understand what I'm saying. Taking your child to the hospital every time and ensuring that the child doesn't pick up a transfusion associated disease. Ideally, the blood which is given to such children should be leukodepleted RBCs so that no infection, nothing of that kind goes into the baby. So that is one thing. Now, I think lately many new advancements have come. I think Dr. Neha can talk about that.
PRBC transfusion, that is blood cell transfusion. So, sir has rightly pointed out there. It is a NAT tested. The one which we're following, the internationally is a NAT tested leukodepleted PRBCs which are to be given. One of the questions that come quite commonly is the bedside filter. Should it be attached or should it not be attached during the transfusion? The transfusion is given through a BT set, and a filter, yes, can be attached. That is one. Second thing is during transfusion is the dictum that is being followed is it should be we should maintain hypertransfusion. All the thalassemics have been told that as much as possible they should maintain a hemoglobin above 9.5 grams per deciliter so as to avoid complications due to iron overload. So that is the second dictum that has to be remembered. It's called super transfusion, hypertransfusion. We can keep it above 10.5 as well. So 9.5 is the cutoff. It has to be above 9.5. Whether the transfusion required in 15 days or 20 days or 30 days. But this has to be maintained. Second thing that is the vaccination. Like so, there are special vaccination which has to be added on if when a child is thalassemic. Third is the nutrition. We avoid iron-rich foods. We avoid iron supplements. We avoid iron tonics, iron injections. Everything has to be avoided. This is the only difference in the nutrition. Rest a protein-rich diet and rest of the vitamins, calciums, vitamin D, everything can be given as per the protocol.
It's a very important point she has said. Iron should be avoided. Now, this is also very important for the thalassemia minors. Thalassemia minor and traits are those children who would have a hemoglobin of 8.59. And many times people end up giving iron to these children to improve the hemoglobin, not realizing that they are thalassemic minors. Their hemoglobin will not improve. It will stay like that. Rather, giving iron will add iron to the body. Unnecessary iron overload will cause other complications. So this is important. Whenever somebody has anemia, the cause of anemia must be looked into, and then the cause should be treated and managed accordingly. So, Dr. Priya, you would like to talk about bone marrow transplant?
So as of date today, the only cure that is available for a thalassemia major, is a bone marrow transplant. So bone marrow transplant, the one that we're doing is an allogeneic bone marrow transplant or allogenic hematopoietic stem cell transplant is what we call it, which as per the international guidelines, a matched sibling is the only person who can donate their stem cells to the child. So if a child has a sibling and the sibling is a 10 by 10 HLA match, then only that child is fit to donate for this patient. Second thing is, if we have a matched unrelated donor, that is called mud transplant. In that, a matched unrelated donor, there are directories all throughout the world who are where the HLA typing of the patient is sent. There are many directories in India, Germany, United States, everywhere. And when this HLA, when you have a donor outside the country or within the country who's a 10 by 10 match, a request is sent to them and the stem cells are being procured, and these stem cells can be used for the transplant. A matched related donor transplant and a matched unrelated donor transplant is the best possible cure which is available. The success rate of the transplant depends on the patient, the situation the child is in, the age of the child, the number of transfusions the child has, and the liver status of the child. The ideal time for a transplant in these children are 3 to 6 years. 3 to 6 years, they have minimum number of transfusions which are they have received. So the transfusion related complications are not there. Their liver and their heart are very much not affected. So they are fresh. So they do not have post transplant complications. One. Second thing is that they're not as small as enough to not able to suffice to the chemotherapy which is given prior to the transplant, or the conditioning regime which is given prior to the transplant. So this is the ideal age to do a transplant. So on an average, less than a 7-year-old or 7.5-year-old is the ideal age. If a thalassemia major less than 7 years old has a matched sibling donor, then ideally they are the perfect candidates to go for a transplant. In these children, the outcome of the transplant is almost 85 to 90%. Rest of it is transplant related complication, transplant related morbidity, and all those things can happen because it is a big procedure. But more or less, this is one of the best cures as of date available.
So, what we want to emphasize is, rather than going through all the process of treatment and transfusion and transplant, tell young boys and girls about this particular disease. It's a good idea if everybody knows their HPLC status. Before a boy befriends a girl and it gets into a serious relationship, it's a good idea if they know they are not both Hal minor, so that the chances of having a baby with Hal major is actually prevented. So it's a very important thing. The society should be more aware about it. Like antenatally, the gynecologists over here, they do it for every mother. So they know whether she is thal minor or not. And then accordingly, then they test the husband and then take action accordingly. This awareness has to go deep into the society. Everybody should know their HPLC status, whether they are thal minor or not. That's the only way we can prevent this from happening. It's awareness, awareness, and awareness, not only amongst parents, but amongst young children, amongst school children. They should also know what is this and what it can lead to in future life. I think that's the message we want to give to all of you who have connected with us.
Every child who's suffering from thalassemia would agree would is the one who prays that if someone would have probably told his parents about thalassemia major and that child wouldn't have suffered from this disease. So we must aim to sort of eradicate the condition, because it is very much eradicate. We can very much do it. It is not a big thing. It has to be very much aware. The awareness has to be there in the society, and I think more awareness campaigns should be done to prevent this from happening.
Anybody who's connected, if you have any questions, you can please post it. We'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, the next question is, when do we transplant for a thalassemia patient? So I just mentioned the ideal time for doing a transplant for a thalassemia patient is from 3 years to 6 years. The minimum the age, the better, best is the outcome. So I can't see the questions. The questions are not here. All right. I think end life. Okay.